This is TWiT.
There is no 10 forward, lounge on the International Space Station right now. But of course, it's a staple from Star Trek. But we're at a point right now in time where in the near future, possibly by the end of this decade, there will be one, if not more, private, stations or facilities in space serving a variety of interests, from NASA because they want that continued presence in orbit, to commercial scientists who are doing their own research, maybe even on the space beer of the future, to tourists that are going to want basically what you're describing right here, which is a way to relax and get the views, the experience, while sharing with friends or compatriots there. And I'm curious about how that aspect of life in space will either change, how it gets monitored, right? Because life on a space station is very much like life on the airplane. You can't go crazy and like smack people around or act out or anything like that when you get on the plane, or you're never going to get to where you want to go. And so at least in the fairly near term, where you have a permanent settlement or station that has maybe more relaxed rules or regulations, how do you see that being incorporated into the operation so that visitors know what the norms are for alcohol and whatnot, and that they act, I guess, accordingly?
Well, I think that's a great question, and I think it's kind of it's going to be. I'm going to try to make it not long-winded. There's a difference between a space tourism concept versus a permanency, right? So right now we look at the space tourism, right? And we look at and that can encompass anything from, the high altitude balloons. There's a couple companies that are offering, you're on the edge of space, right? And on those, you have this premier experience, right? And you better. Given the price point for that ticket,
$250,000. Yeah,
I think that's space perspective. That's going to have a wet bar, like in the capsule.
They do. Yeah. They actually, and I actually talked with Jane about that, and they have a ultra luxe lounge. There's another company that's out of France that they have Michelin star meals that are being prepared. Again, the difference between moving space tourism into a permanent settlement for humankind. There's a massive difference. And I think a lot of the companies that are coming out on the commercial side are certainly starting to explore more and more with the space tourism as they get everything up and running and we get more of a regularity there, bringing that price point down for the regular people to go. And then, again, building into a permanency. So there's a lot going on there, because I think a lot of those companies are trying to move away from the billionaire boys club to say, again, we want everyone. And I think, you brought up Virgin Galactic earlier, and, they just had another launch this week where you're showing them making an adamant effort on the DE&I aspect. You're bringing in all of these other aspects to break the mold on this is only for billionaires, because they want all of us, right? But right now, of course, it's very expensive until we can figure out launch and all the countries that are starting to try to do that. ESA just came out with a new structure that they wanted to bring in more commercial, just like we're doing in the US. Mm-hmm. There's a lot going on there.
Yeah. Well, I guess the follow up there.
Answered your question.
No, it does. Well, while you were talking, like it brought to mind, like you were talking about the commercial aspect of war, and of course in the United States, the FAA has a lot to say when it comes to the Virgin Galactics, the Blue Origins, the private launches of the world here, or of the US. And I'm curious if there's going to be like a liquor license requirement then for these experiences that people might need on a permanent basis. You think they're expensive
for the corner liquor store. Can you imagine what they're going to cost for space?
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, and that actually brings up a lot of, and I've actually, there's an organization called Discus, and they're the Distilled Spirits Council of North America. And they do a lot of the legislation and have all the lobbyists. And I spoke at their conference earlier this year. And it's interesting because, when you look at law for alcohol, it's different federally, it's different versus the states, different internationally. In the United States, we have something called the 3-tier law, right? Where it was implemented after Prohibition in order to make sure people weren't drinking, lead gin and dying, crap like that. But it's there for a reason. And that's a US thing, right? And so if, what does that law look like? Is it I'm adhering to the 3-tier system until I'm buying the alcohol in Cape Canaveral, and then we put the alcohol on the shuttle, and now we're good to go? Versus, hey, some people are using moon dust to grow wine vines. Mm-hmm. And now you're talking about indigenous, are we able to do that? So again, it just depends on the capabilities. But yeah, honestly, it's like, do we need a space bartender? Yeah, of course we do.
So
are you
someone's going to make actual moonshine. I guarantee you.
Yes!
On the moon. Someone is going to do it.
Yeah.
We're probably going to find out like 50 years later in someone's tell-all book, it's going to be something like that. So,
I know you've been waiting to use that term.
No, I just came up with that too. You can have that.
All right.
That's right.
Hey,
it just calls back to For All Mankind. I'm like so excited for the new season, but a lot of that stuff comes up on the show, and it's like, these are human things that will happen.
Tech Break is brought to you by our friends at IT Pro TV, now called ACI Learning. Invest in your current workforce and fortify your business's future. Your whole team will love to be entertained while they train. Visit go.acilearning.com/twit. TWiT listeners can receive up to 65% off an IT Pro Enterprise Solution Plan after completing their form. Based on your team's size, you'll receive a properly quoted discount tailored to your needs.